9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello. Bit of an off day. I apologize. My tea is currently, well, the water is wanting to boil. Boiling? It's not boiling right now. What's the process that I'm trying to think of? Words are hard. Whatever. Thanks for being here. Hi, welcome to Cooking the Books. Sorry I missed last week. I did give fair warning at the end of the last stream, so yeah. This hat is tighter than the last ones. Last rip reverse ones. Yeah, heating up. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, there's a new shiny thing. Shiny. Someone type something in chat. StreamYards did a thing. StreamYard did a thing. I did get the Zaylen hat. Hell, it's on its way. But yeah, StreamYard is testing out comments on stream. You guys can see it, right? I can see it. You know what? Rumble, if you could stop being a jackass, that'd be great. Just because I go to a different screen doesn't mean you should pause. All right. I'll be right back because Mrs. Potts is about to scream her head off. So, un momento, por favor. I found a kitty on my way to the kitchen. Hi. Hello. Are you gonna lay down? No, you're gonna go. It's also hailing / raining. I think it's just rain now. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear that, but that's what that sound is if you do. And this cat just got insulted that my brother closed the door to his bedroom because he was going to go attack him. In a nice way. I don't see Sam yet, so he can't call him a bastard, but you're upset, huh? Yep, see, he changed his mind because the door closed. Momentarily, I'm going to be getting my tea after it's done steeping. I'll probably be carrying my familiar with me, I guess. Anyway, let's say hi to everybody. Welcome again. I mean, I was never banned from my own channel. Just, what's his buckets? Sorry, I'm trying to play with things. Adams. But hi, Legatus. How's it going? And Static, hello. I don't understand this because I've never seen a singular episode. A single episode, if you will, of The Simpsons. I've seen clips, never an episode. But hi. And Kel, hello. Today, the dinosaur I am playing the part of is the goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus. Thank you, Kel. I mean, I would pull this comment up, but it's a lie, and he's just leaning into it. So it's a little rude. Because he was never banned from my chat, as he's trying to imply that he was. I have text messages to prove that he was not there. Just saying. I'm pretty tempted to actually ban you now, though. Choices. Well done. This is the first time I've tried this on, and it's like, because it's the flex fit, I'll be able to stretch it out a bit, but the other flex fits from Ripaverse are not this tight, and I got the same size as I normally do. So it's very weird. You're a bunch of liars. Oh, interesting. So I have my little, you can't see my freaking mouse, but like where the little square of my profile picture thing is that you guys can see on YouTube. It's not on StreamYard. So when you said this, I was really confused on what you were talking about. Yeah. But yes, teeny tiny chat, a chat for ants. Do you guys want that on? I can shut it off. Matter of opinion, my friend. No. Just no. I don't acknowledge silliness such as the things that you're speaking of. Such as the things that you're speaking. Such as the things of which you are speaking. There we go. Don't end sentences with prepositions, people. It's improper grammar. I got it. I didn't understand the 4 out of 5 wishes thing. Monkey's Paw episode of Simpsons, I guess, is, I'm assuming. It doesn't mean I have to acknowledge it. Rawr! Hi, Shock. How's it going? Did I miss anyone when I was going through these? I got distracted by just talking to you guys like I sometimes do. Okay. It kind of works nicely, the positioning of it. I can't move the chat. So at least it's not like over the center portion of the stage. Yeah, stage. Okay, where was I? Shock. Hello. Hi. Shocky Z is his name now. God, did I miss that much in a week and a half? Don't be soft. You'll get over it. Dom. I missed Dermy. Was he in here? Are you trolling me? I see no Dermy. Yeah, I don't see no Dermy. You're trolling me. Don't trust you. You guys can't see his face right now. It's ridiculous. It's like... He's not afraid of the storm, but my other cat is. Which my other cat is probably under my bed right now. Oh, okay. It did sound like a rap name, so I approve. DJ Shocky Z. I approve further. I support this message. Okay, I'm going to go off screen again, chat away. I want to go get my tea and disturb my cat's slumber, which is never advisable, but he'll get over it just like Dom. All right. I am back. The best impression I can give. Don't judge too harshly. I've never even seen that movie, but I like imitating the line. 205. Let's see. Where were we? I feel like a lot happened. There was a lot of like technical stuff, but they figured out. So for a recap from 2 weeks ago. Oh, I guess I could take DJ Shocky Z down. My bad. Anyone come in while I was getting my tea? Oh. Today? I'm just being me, my friend. No, it is ginger tea. I don't have the bag of tea anymore to show you. I guess the bag that goes around the bag of tea. Yes, I know I'm on page 209, but thank you, Dom. I was more talking about the recap, which I'm going to start now. So they were on the tour. They went past the Rexy's location Let's see. They saw the sick. I can't remember the type of dinosaur that got sick. Bear with me. I'm not feeling very well. So, getting past that. Basically, they figure out that the sick dinosaur was sick because of eating berries when it was getting new gizzard rocks. And when Dr. Grant was looking at the piles of rocks for like the regurgitated gizzard rocks, he found raptor eggs. And they had a whole discussion back with the control room about how that's not possible. And they almost got to it by saying, well, I mean, they did get to it, but they don't realize it yet. They have to think on it more. The fact that it's some of the DNA was spliced with amphibian DNA, frogs specifically. We all know where that's going. And if you don't, I'll not spoil it for you, but where have you been? So there was that. And they do a whole chart thing, which I do have that tab still open. Basically, they had them input the data into the computer to see how many dinosaurs there are. But instead of putting the exact amount of dinosaurs that there's supposed to be, they put in more and they do a couple of tests. And every time they add more, the computer found that many dinosaurs. There's a bunch of math and science behind that I don't understand, but just know that there's like 3 different dinosaur nests is my understanding. And they were going to go into the park to like the next day or whatever to try and find the nests. That was basically that. So they continue the tour. Timmy thinks that he sees a velociraptor, makes the car stop. And everyone's just like, no, that's not possible. I guess that was technically before they found the what was the Triceratops? I guess. Was that in the movie? Whichever dinosaur that was sick. So that was before. And then they discover, oh, Timmy was right because he did see freaking velociraptor because chaos theory. Anyway. So they continue on. Actually, I guess what they were planning on doing was turning around. And Dr. Sattler, the lawyer, Gennaro, stays. Both of them stay with their vet, the park vet person. And everyone gets back in the Jeeps and whatnot. They also see Lexi, the girl, the sister. She sees some velociraptors on the ship that was supposed to be docking, but the storm wasn't letting them in. And so they said, like, come back later, whatever. Well, there's some velociraptors, like little baby ones, on the ship. And the girl's the one that notices, and they have to get the binoculars out for everyone else just to confirm. And they do see, like, at the aft of the ship, they're like kind of just frolicking on the back. So they wanted to warn the control room, and that's when they discover that their radios don't work. Well, back to the control room, Nedry does Nedry things. He says he's going to get like his Coke or whatever. He had shut down the systems so he could go get the samples that he needs to give to Dodgson. And that's basically like why the comms go down. But once, as you know, the drill, the Jeeps or the Land Rovers get back to the Rexy's paddock area, everything shuts down. Like the fences go down, everything besides the main building, the control room, like the building that the control room is in. So they're watching all of this happen. yeah, and so we're kind of left at the cliffhanger, like the ultimate cliffhanger, which I found kind of funny that is where we got left off last stream. So did I miss anything? I feel like that was the main gist of it. Like we learn a little bit more about Sam Jackson's character, that like he was selected because of his background. Not because of his skin color, because it wasn't a DEI hire. I don't know. What is his name? Mr. Sam Jackson's character. Dang it. I even like listened to the stream again because I knew I was going to forget. How do I forget his name? It's going to bother me. What's it? Arnold. Thank you, Kratos. Thank you. You were a little slow, but thanks. Yeah. So you learn a little bit about Arnold, where he has background in like zoos and theme parks. So like Disney World he helped build and all that stuff. And he talks about how this park is supremely unique because it has all the problems that zoos have, plus theme parks, plus a whole new host of problems like not knowing what to feed and not to feed the dinosaurs, the fact that the atmosphere is different than what it was for the dinosaurs back then. They don't know why the dinosaurs get sick, like the T-Rex will get sick from drinking the water, but not all the time, things like that. It's a general idea of what happened previously. 7-minute recap. Oops. Let's see. Stegosaurus. Okay. So it was a Triceratops in the movie, but it was a Stegosaurus in the book. I did not realize that difference. Thank you. And then hello, Cliff on Rumble. Hello. Thank you for the snacks. And it did come up this time, so yay you. Well done, Rumble. Now, if you could stop, or if you could start being able to send money directly to bank accounts instead of PayPal so I can get my money, that'd be great. Yeah, Dom and I were talking about that because I did not recall Regis at all. I did not mean to make that rhyme. So I kind of can't wait to see what happens with Gennaro. Nerdy started his sabotage? I don't know what this means. At first, when I saw this, I thought you meant like Nerdy Neo was in chat. Yeah, I listened to myself. I needed to recap, and I didn't feel like rereading the pages. I hate listening to myself, but I've gotten over it after a little over a year of doing all this. Oh, I got it. It was a typo. I didn't even think of that. My bad. I didn't know when it came in, obviously. Oh, one thing. Nope, that stayed up. I thought it went down. Okay, let me try this. Huh, interesting. Oh, it was my name that moved. Okay. I thought for a second that the chat on the screen went away when I pull up chats. Fine, it was not a typo. Autocorrect. I understand correcting it. You're forgiven this one time. Which is funny because whenever I would try to just put nerd when I had my autocorrect on my phone, it would autocorrect it to need, as if nerd wasn't a word. I hate autocorrect. It's so stupid. It's so annoying. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Okay, I don't need those pages open anymore. Let me drink some tea, and then we can get started. Because you're not here to hear me gab away. Mostly. Maybe on other books. You're correct, Dom. I would not. Why would you need the benefit of the doubt? You're a Yankees fan. You don't get that luxury. So we are starting the 4th iteration, and I would like to share that with you. For a second, it looked different, but it is not. I almost hit leave studio. What is wrong with me? Present. There we go. Share screen. Jurassic Park diagram. Share. Was it sharing it properly? Okay. And scrolling up. We are on the 4th iteration. Inevitably, underlying instabilities begin to appear. Ian Malcolm. And we are on the main road. I feel like StreamYard has changed something in how they present things. That was weird. All right, moving on. The main road. Rain drummed loudly on the roof of the Land Cruiser. Tim felt the night vision goggles pressing heavily on his forehead. He reached for the knob near his ear and adjusted the intensity. There was a brief phosphorescent flare. How's that for an alliteration? And then, in shades of electronic green and black, he could see the Land Cruiser behind, with Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm inside. Neat! Dr. Grant was staring out the front windshield toward him. Tim saw him pick up the radio from the dash. There was a burst of static, and then he heard Dr. Grant's voice. "Can you see us back here?" Tim picked up the radio from Ed Regis. "I see you." "Everything all right?" "We're fine, Dr. Grant." "Stay in the car." "We will, don't worry." He clicked the radio off. Ed Regis snorted. "It's pouring down rain. Of course we'll stay in the car," he muttered. Tim turned to look at the foliage at the side of the road. Through the goggles, the foliage was a bright electronic green, and beyond he could see sections of the green pattern of the fence. The Land Cruisers were stopped on the downslope of a hill, which must mean they were someplace near the Tyrannosaur area. It would be amazing to see a Tyrannosaur with these night vision goggles. A real thrill. Maybe the Tyrannosaur would come to the fence and look over at them. Tim wondered if his eyes would glow in the dark when he saw them. That would be neat. But he didn't see anything, and eventually he stopped looking. Everyone in the cars fell silent. The rain thrummed on the roof of the car. Sheets of water streamed down over the sides of the windows. It was hard for Tim to see out, even with the goggles. "How long have we been sitting here?" Malcolm asked. "I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes." "I wonder what the problem is." "Maybe a short circuit from the rain." "But it happened before the rain really started." There was another silence. In a tense voice, Lex said, "But there's no lightning, right?" She had always been afraid of lightning, and she now sat nervously squeezing her leather mitt in her hands. Dr. Grant said, "What was that? We didn't quite read that." "Just my sister talking." "Oh." Tim again scanned the foliage, but saw nothing. Certainly nothing as big as a tyrannosaur. He began to wonder if the tyrannosaurs came out at night. Were they nocturnal animals? Tim wasn't sure if he had ever read that. He had the feeling that tyrannosaurs were all-weather, day or night animals. The time of day didn't matter to a tyrannosaur. The rain continued to pour. "Hell of a rain," Ed Regis said. "It's really coming down." Lex said, "I'm hungry." "I know that, Lex," Regis said, "but we're stuck here, sweetie. The cars run on electricity and buried cables in the ground. Or the road, if you will." "Stuck for how long?" "Until they fix the electricity." Listening to the sound of the rain, Tim felt himself growing sleepy. He yawned and turned to look at the palm trees on the left side of the road and was startled by a sudden thump as the ground shook. He swung back just in time to catch a glimpse of a dark shape as it swiftly crossed the road between the two cars. Jesus! What was that? It was huge. It was big as the car. Tim, are you there? He picked up the radio. Yes, I'm here. Did you see it, Tim? No, Tim said. I missed it. What the hell was it? Malcolm said. Are you wearing the night vision goggles, Tim? Yes, I'll watch, Tim said. Was it the Tyrannosaur? Ed Regis asked. I don't think so. It was in the road. But you didn't see it, Ed Regis said. No. Tim felt bad that he had missed seeing the animal, whatever it was. There was a sudden white crack of lightning, and his night goggles flared bright green. He blinked his eyes and started counting. 1,000. 2,000. The thunder crashed, deafeningly loud and very close. Lex began to cry. Oh, no. Take it easy, honey, Ed Regis said. It's just lightning. Tim scanned the side of the road. The rain was coming down hard now, shaking the leaves with hammering drops. It made everything move. Everything seemed alive. He scanned the leaves. He stopped. There was something beyond the leaves. Tim looked up, higher. Behind the foliage, beyond the fence, he saw a thick body with a pebbled, grainy surface like the bark of a tree. But it wasn't a tree. He continued to look higher, sweeping the goggles upward. He saw the huge head of the Tyrannosaurus, just standing there, looking over the fence at the two Land Cruisers. The lightning flashed again, and the big animal rolled its head and bellowed in the glaring light. Then darkness and silence again, and the pounding rain. Tim? Yes, Dr. Grant. You see what it is? Yes, Dr. Grant. Tim had the sense that Dr. Grant was trying to talk in a way that wouldn't upset his sister. What's going on right now? Nothing, Tim said, watching the Tyrannosaur through his night goggles. I keep wanting to say night vision goggles. That's what I'm used to, NVGs. But so if I stumble over that, that's why. Just standing on the other side of the fence. I can't see much from here, Tim. I can see fine, Dr. Grant. It's just standing there. Okay. Lex continued to cry, snuffling. There was another pause. Tim watched the Tyrannosaur. The head was huge. The animal looked from one vehicle to another, then back again. It seemed to stare right at Tim. In the goggles, the eyes glowed bright green. Tim felt a chill, but then as he looked down the animal's body, moving down from the massive head and jaws, he saw the smaller, muscular forelimb. It waved in the air, and then it gripped the fence. Jesus Christ, Ed Regis said, staring out the window. The greatest predator the world has ever known. The most fearsome attack in human history. Somewhere in the back of his publicist's brain, Ed Regis was still writing copy. But he could feel his knees begin to shake uncontrollably, his trousers flapping like flags. Jesus. He was frightened. He didn't want to be here. Alone among all the people in the two cars, Ed Regis knew what a dinosaur attack was like. He knew what happened to people. He had seen the mangled bodies that resulted from a raptor attack. He could picture it in his mind. And this was a Rex, much, much bigger, the greatest meat eater that ever walked the earth. Jesus. When the Tyrannosaur roared, it was terrifying. A scream from some other world. Ed Regis felt the spreading warmth in his trousers. He'd peed in his pants. He was simultaneously embarrassed and terrified. But he knew he had to do something. He couldn't just stay here. He had to do something. Something. His hands were shaking, trembling against the dash. Jesus Christ, he said again. Bad language, Lex said, wagging her finger at him. Tim heard the sound of a door opening, and he swung his head away from the Tyrannosaur. The night vision goggles streaked laterally, in time to see Ed Regis stepping out through the open door, ducking his head in the rain. Hey, Lex said, where are you going? Ed Regis just turned and ran in the opposite direction from the Tyrannosaur, disappearing into the woods. The door to the Land Cruiser hung open. The paneling was getting wet. He left, Lex said. Where did he go? He left us alone. Shut the door, Tim said, but she she had started to scream. He left us! He left us! Tim, what's going on? It was Dr. Grant on the radio. Tim? Tim leaned forward and tried to shut the door. From the back seat, he couldn't reach the handle. He looked back at the Tyrannosaur as lightning flashed again, momentarily silhouetting the huge black shape against the white flaring sky. Tim, what's happening? He left us! He left us! Tim blinked to recover his vision. When he looked again, the Tyrannosaur was standing there, exactly as before, motionless and huge. Rain dripped from its jaws. The forelimb gripped the fence. Oh, you okay, bud? My own little mini Tyrannosaur wanted to join the fray. Can you lay down, please? Dude. Okay, you're really a pain in the butt. Okay, where? Tim blinked to recover his vision. When he looked again, the Tyrannosaur was standing there, exactly as before, motionless and huge. Rain dripped from its jaws. The forelimb gripped the fence. And then Tim realized the Tyrannosaur was holding on to the fence. The fence wasn't electrified anymore. Lex, close the door. The radio crackled. Tim, I'm here, Dr. Grant. What's going on? Regis ran away, Tim said. He what? He ran away. I think he saw that the fence isn't electrified, Tim said. The fence isn't electrified, Malcolm said over the radio. Did he say the fence isn't electrified? Lex, Tim said, close the door. But Lex was screaming, he left us, in a steady, monotonous wail, and there was nothing for Tim to do but climb out of the back door into the slashing rain and shut the door for her. Thunder rumbled and the lightning flashed again. Tim looked up and saw the Tyrannosaur crashing down the cyclone fence with a giant hind limb. Timmy! He ran back in and slammed the door, the sound lost in the thunderclap. The radio, Tim, are you there? He grabbed the radio. I'm here. He turned to Lex. Lock the doors, get in the middle of the car and shut up. Outside, the Tyrannosaur rolled its head and took an awkward step forward. The claws of its feet had caught in the grid of the flattened fence. Lex saw the animal finally and became silent. Still, she watched with wide eyes. Radio crackle. Tim. Yes, Dr. Grant. Stay in the car. Stay down. Be quiet. Don't move and don't make noise. Okay. You should be all right. I don't think it can open the car. Okay. Just stay quiet so you don't arouse its attention any more than necessary. Okay. Tim clicked the radio off. You hear that, Lex? His sister nodded silently. She never took her eyes off the dinosaur. The Tyrannosaur roared. In the glare of lightning, they saw it pull free of the fence and take a bounding step forward. Now it was standing between the two cars. Tim couldn't see Dr. Grant's car anymore because the huge body blocked his view. The rain ran in rivulets down the pebbled skin of the muscular hind legs. He couldn't see the animal's head, which was high above the roofline. The Tyrannosaur moved around the side of their car. It went to the very spot where Tim had gotten out of the car, where Ed Regis had gotten out of the car. The animal paused there. The big head ducked down toward the mud. Tim looked back at Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm in the rear car. Their faces were tense as they stared forward through the windshield. The huge head raised back up, jaws open, and then stopped by the side windows. In the glare of lightning, they saw the beady, expressionless reptile eye moving in the socket. It was looking in the car. His sister's breath came in ragged, frightened gasps. He reached out and squeezed her arm, hoping she would stay quiet. The dinosaur continued to stare for a long time through the side window. Perhaps the dinosaur couldn't really see them, he thought. Finally, the head lifted up, out of view again. Timmy, Lex whispered. It's okay, Tim whispered. I don't think it saw us. He was looking back toward Dr. Grant when a jolting impact rocked the Land Cruiser and shattered the windshield in a spiderweb as the Tyrannosaur's head crashed against the hood of the Land Cruiser. Tim was knocked flat on the seat. The night vision goggles slid off his forehead. And then the next time they say it, of course they say night vision. He got back up quickly, blinking in the darkness, his mouth warm with blood. Lex? He couldn't see his sister anywhere. The Tyrannosaur stood near the front of the Land Cruiser, its chest moving as it breathed, the forelimbs making clawing movements in the air. Lex, Tim whispered. Then he heard her groan. She was lying somewhere on the floor under the front seat.
Then the huge head came down, entirely blocking the shattered windshield. The Tyrannosaur banged again on the front hood of the Land Cruiser. Tim grabbed the seat as the car rocked on its wheels. The Tyrannosaur banged down twice more, denting the metal. Then it moved around the side of the car. The big raised tail blocked his view out of all the side windows. At the back, the animal snorted, a deep, rumbling growl that blended with the thunder. It sank its jaws into the spare tire mounted on the back of the Land Cruiser and, in a single head shake, tore it away. The rear of the car lifted into the air for a moment. Then it thudded down with a muddy splash. "Tim," Dr. Grant said. "Tim, are you there?" Tim grabbed the radio. "We're okay," he said. There was a shrill metallic scrape as claws raked the roof of the car. Tim's heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't see anything out of the windows on the right side except pebbled, leathery flesh. The Tyrannosaur was leaning against the car, which rocked back and forth with each breath, the springs and metal creaking loudly. Lex groaned again. Tim put down the radio and started to crawl over into the front seat. The Tyrannosaur roared and the metal roof dented downward. Tim felt a sharp pain in his head and tumbled to the floor, onto the transmission hump. He found himself lying alongside Lex, and he was shocked to see that the whole side of her head was covered in blood. She looked unconscious. There was another jolting impact, and pieces of glass fell all around him. Tim felt rain. He looked up and saw that the front windshield had broken out. There was just a jagged rim of glass, and beyond, the big head of the dinosaur, looking down at him. Tim felt a sudden chill, and then the head rushed forward toward him, the jaws open. There was the squeal of metal against teeth, and he felt the hot, stinking breath of the animal, and a thick tongue stuck into the car through the windshield opening. The tongue slapped wetly across inside the car. He felt the hot lather of dinosaur saliva, and the Tyrannosaur roared, a deafening sound inside the car. The head pulled away abruptly. Tim scrambled up, avoiding the dent in the roof. There was still room to sit on the front seat by the passenger door. The Tyrannosaur stood in the rain near the front fender. It seemed confused by what had happened to it. Blood dripped freely from its jaws. The Tyrannosaur looked at Tim, cocking its head to stare with one big eye. The head moved close to the car, sideways, and peered in. The blood spattered on the dented hood of the Land Cruiser, mixing with the rain. "It can't get to me," Tim thought. "It's too big." Then the head pulled away, and in the flare of lightning, he saw the hind leg lift up, and the world tilted crazily as the Land Cruiser slammed over on its side, the windows splatting in the mud. He saw Lex fall helplessly against the side window, and he fell down beside her, banging his head. Tim felt dizzy. Then the Tyrannosaur's jaws clamped onto the window frame, and the whole Land Cruiser was lifted up into the air and shaken. "Timmy!" Lex shrieked, so near to his ear that it hurt. She was suddenly awake, and he grabbed her as the Tyrannosaur crashed the car down again. Tim felt a stabbing pain in his side, and his sister fell on top of him. The car went up again, tilting crazily. Lex shouted, "Timmy!" and he saw the door give way beneath her, and she fell out of the car into the mud. But Tim couldn't answer, because in the next instant, everything swung crazily. He saw the trunks of the palm trees sliding downward past him, moving sideways through the air. He glimpsed the ground very far below, the hot roar of the Tyrannosaur, the blazing eye, the tops of the palm trees. And then, with a metallic scraping shriek, the car fell from the Tyrannosaur's jaws, a sickening fall, and Tim's stomach heaved in the moment before the world became totally black and silent. Heaved in the moment before. Got it. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I disturb your slumber again? In the other car, Malcolm gasped. "Jesus, what happened to the car?" Grant blinked his eyes as the lightning faded. The other car was gone. Grant couldn't believe it. He peered forward, trying to see through the rain-streaked windshield. The dinosaur's body was so large it was probably just blocking. No. In another flash of lightning, he saw clearly. The car was gone. "What happened?" Malcolm said. "I don't know." Faintly over the rain, Grant heard the sound of the little girl screaming. The dinosaur was standing in darkness on the road up ahead, but they could see well enough to know that it was bending over now, sniffing the ground, or eating something on the ground. "Can you see?" Malcolm said, squinting. "Not much, no," Grant said. The rain pounded on the roof of the car. He listened for the little girl, but he didn't hear her anymore. The two men sat in the car listening. Was it the girl? Malcolm said finally. It sounded like the girl. It did, yes. Was it? I don't know, Grant said. He felt a seeping fatigue overtake him. Blurred through the rainy windshield, the dinosaur was coming toward their car. Slow, ominous strides coming right toward them. Malcolm said, you know, at times like this, one feels, well, perhaps extinct animals should be left extinct. Don't you have that feeling now? Yes, Grant said. He was feeling his heart pounding. Do you have any suggestions about what we do now? I can't think of a thing, Grant said. Malcolm twisted the handle, kicked open the door, and ran. But even as he did, Grant could see he was too late, the Tyrannosaur too close. There was another crack of lightning, and in the instant of glaring white light, Grant watched in horror as the Tyrannosaur roared and leapt forward. Grant was not clear about exactly what happened next. Malcolm was running, his feet splashing in the mud. The Tyrannosaur bounded alongside him and ducked its massive head, and Malcolm was tossed into the air like a small doll. By then, Grant was out of the car too, feeling the cold rain slashing his face and body. The Tyrannosaur had turned its back to him, the huge tail swinging through the air. Grant was tensing to run for the woods when suddenly the Tyrannosaur spun back to face him and roared. Grant froze. He was standing beside the passenger door of the Land Cruiser, drenched in rain. He was completely exposed, the Tyrannosaur no more than 8 feet away. The big animal roared again. At so close a range, the sound was terrifyingly loud. Grant felt himself shaking with cold and fright. He pressed his trembling hands against the metal of the door panel to steady them. The Tyrannosaur roared once more, but it did not attack. It cocked its head and looked with first one eye, then the other at the Land Cruiser, and it did nothing. It just stood there. What was going on? The powerful jaws opened and closed. The Tyrannosaur bellowed angrily, and then the big hind leg came up and crashed down on the roof of the car. The claws slid off with a metal screech, barely missing Grant as he stood there, still unmoving. The foot splashed in the mud. The head ducked down in a slow arc, and the animal inspected the car, snorting. It peered into the front windshield. Then, moving toward the rear, it banged the passenger door shut and moved right toward Grant as he stood there. Grant was dizzy with fear, his heart pounding inside his chest. With the animal so close, he could smell the rotten flesh in the mouth, the sweetish blood smell, the sickening stench of the carnivore. He tensed his body, awaiting the inevitable. The big head slid past him toward the rear of the car. Grant blinked. What had happened? Was it possible the Tyrannosaur hadn't seen him? It seemed as if it hadn't. But how could that be? Grant looked back to see the animal sniffing the rear-mounted tire. It nudged the tire with its snout, and then the head swung back. Again, it approached Grant. This time, the animal stopped, the black, flaring nostrils just inches away. Grant felt the animal's startling hot breath on his face. But the Tyrannosaur wasn't sniffing like a dog. It was just breathing, and if anything, it seemed puzzled. No, the Tyrannosaur couldn't see him. Not if he stood motionless, and in a detached academic corner of his mind, he found an explanation for that, a reason why. The jaws opened before him, the massive head raised up. Grant squeezed his fists together and bit his lip, trying desperately to remain motionless, to make no sound. The Tyrannosaur bellowed in the night air. But by now, Grant was beginning to understand. The animal couldn't see him, but it suspected he was there somewhere, and was trying with its bellowing to frighten Grant into some revealing movement. So long as he stood his ground, Grant realized he was invisible. In a final gesture of frustration, the big hind leg lifted up and kicked the Land Cruiser over, and Grant felt searing pain and the surprising sensation of his own body flying through the air. It seemed to be happening very slowly, and he had plenty of time to feel the world turn colder and watch the ground rush up to strike him in the face. All right. I am getting a headache from this damn hat. So, I'm taking it off. And y'all get to see my head, which you normally don't get to see. So, you're welcome. My helmet hair, as it is. Hat hair. Whatever. Okay, you go back. Over here. Anyway. I needed to pause reading. as well. So there's that. Be nice. Oof. You can see the freaking indent that hat puts on my forehead. That makes me sad. I guess I need to buy the bigger size. Oh, sorry, sweetie. Yeah, that was a bit tricky. Does anyone listen to the sound of the rain that you can play on your phone when you are going to sleep? I do. There's like apps and stuff for that, but I just do. I have a station on my Pandora that I listen to when I need to listen to something and go to sleep. So you're super fancy. Got it. Duly noted, Legatus. Yeah, I was waving its hand at him. That's for sure. Don't you guys want to play? When they heard the loud thumps coming from the cup of water moving I actually have photos and like a video of that, because when I went to Costa Rica, my friend that I went with, both of us are like huge Jurassic Park fans. So when in Costa Rica, we had little clear water cups, and so I would like dip my finger in and like hold it up and like try and get the drops perfect. Like it was on her phone and she had like a million photos, and I realized after the trip what we should have done was just record it and then take a screenshot to get like the photo with the ripples in it, but you know, hindsight, all that. I mean, technically, Lex is a little girl. Like, she's younger than Tim in the book. So she's got a bit more forgiveness from me. I'm giving her a bit more grace, I guess would be the better way to phrase that. Because she is a little girl, so she was hysterical in that moment. Here in the book, Grant and Malcolm just hang in their cars while the kids are being attacked, and like the movie. Yeah, I like the movie better on how that is done. Not necessarily the entire scene. So I feel like in the movie that scene is a bit too short. So I like the length of the scene in the book. I enjoy the scene in the movie because basically they treat the Tyrannosaur like a dog with the freaking flare. She's like, here, boy. Here, boy. Oh, calm down. It wasn't for you. And then they throw it and it like acts like a dog. So I found that funny even as a kid. It's a little silly though. Well, hello, Kaylee. How's it going? Welcome. Interesting trivia about how Jeff Goldblum convinced Spielberg to give Malcolm a hero moment in the movie instead of just running away from the Rex. So I was going to ask that, like, maybe it picks up and he's not as much of a coward. It's interesting. But I feel like the movie does make him more personable. I don't want to say likable because I don't dislike him in the book. But he's more of a scientist than a likable person. Not that scientists aren't likable people, but they're very technical people. So it kind of takes a certain type of person to find them likable, more so than just a regular person, if you will. So I was actually thinking about this, Dom, that she may, I don't know which one's more annoying, honestly. I feel like in the movie she's actually more annoying because she's older and she should know better. Because, like I mentioned, I give the little girl more grace because she's a little girl and less capable of holding in the emotions in a moment like that. So yeah, I'm more annoyed at Lex, movie Lex, than book Lex. I think that's just an overall assessment now that I think about it, because I don't know what redeeming features Lex, movie Lex, has. Because she's older, I don't give her as much grace. It's interesting. What about the girth of the scene? Thank you, Kel. Just because the length was mentioned does not mean girth needs to be added to it. But of course you would. Ooh-wee. My head was really hurting. I mean, I'd had the hat on for like a half hour. I thought so. This one's exactly 100 pages. All right. Now the question is, how the hell do they get out of this? So Lex is alone in the mud, possibly like stepped on, crushed. Malcolm is wherever. We don't even know what happened. So I don't really like that part in the book. Like, we don't know what happened. So I guess maybe they'll like split up the characters, but still, like, the T-Rex jumped and Malcolm went flying in the air. That's all we know that happened. So I don't know if I like that more. Food for thought. I'll have to think on it more. And I'm not even, like, with the movie, I'm not even talking about like him having a bit of a hero moment, even though technically it ruins Grant's plan. That was a better plan. Like, setting aside the flare situation in the movie, just like in general, I mean, you don't really see in the movie exactly what happens. Like, the Tyrannosaur just throws its head, I guess, when it's going to eat the lawyer on the toilet, I guess. Yeah, still food for thought. I'll think on that one. She gets covered in dino boogies. That's pretty. No, it's really, really not. And this. Yes. I did find that to be a funny situation. I think I like that more than the book. I like that more than the movie scene. But I'm curious to know what happens to Ed Regis now. Because, you like, that freaking lawyer, man. He's so annoying in the movie. Sniveling weasel of a man. I don't know if I would have appreciated his death as much in the movie if he wasn't sitting on the toilet, though. So, like, him just wetting his pants in the movie, I don't know if it would have felt the same. Not in the literal sense, weirdos. Yes, yes. No offense to Weasel, but full offense to Weasels, the animal. A rat. Let's keep going. Return. Oh, damn, Harding said. Will you look at that? They were sitting in Harding's gasoline-powered Jeep, staring forward as the flick of the windshield wipers, past the flick of the windshield wipers. In the yellow flare of the headlamps, a big fallen tree blocked the road. Must have been the lightning, Gennaro said. Hell of a tree. We can't get past it, Harding said. I better tell Arnold in control. He picked up the radio and twisted the channel dial. Hello, John. Are you there, John? There was nothing but steady, hissing static. I don't understand, he said. The radio lines seem to be down. It must be the storm, Gennaro said. I suppose, Harding said. Try the land cruisers, Ellie said. Harding opened the other channels, but there was no answer. Nothing, he said. They're probably back to camp by now and outside the range of our little set. In any case, I don't think we should stay here. It'll be hours before maintenance gets a crew out here to move that tree. He turned the radio off and put the Jeep into reverse. What are you going to do? Ellie said. Go back to the turnout and get onto the maintenance road. Fortunately, there's a second road system, Harding explained. You're making my life difficult, kitty cat. I'm just going to set my arm on you. We have one road for visitors and a second road for animal handlers and feed trucks and so on. We'll drive back on that maintenance road. It's a little longer and not so scenic. But you may find it interesting. If the rain lets up, we'll get a glimpse of some of the animals at night. We should be back in 30-40 minutes, Harding said, if I don't get lost. He turned the Jeep around in the night and headed south again. Lightning flashed and every monitor in the control room went black. Arnold sat forward, his body rigid and tense. Jesus, not now. Not now. That was all he needed, to have everything go out now in the storm. All the main power circuits were surge protected, of course, but Arnold wasn't sure about the modems Nedry was using for his data transmission. Most people didn't know it was possible to blow an entire system through a modem. The lightning pulse climbed back into the computer through the telephone line, and bang, no more motherboard. No more RAM, no more file server, no more computer. The screens flickered, and then one by one they came back on. Arnold sighed and collapsed back in his chair. He wondered again where Nedry had gone. 5 minutes ago, he'd sent guards to search the building for him. The fat bastard was probably in the bathroom reading a comic book. Hey now. But the guards hadn't come back, and they hadn't called in. 5 minutes. If Nedry was in the building, they should have found him by now. Somebody took the damn Jeep, Muldoon said as he came back in the room. Have you talked to the land cruisers yet? Can't raise them on the radio, Arnold said. I have to use this because the main board is down. It's weak, but it ought to work. I've tried on all 6 channels. I know they have radios in the cars, but they're not answering. That's not good, Muldoon said. If you want to go out there, take one of the maintenance vehicles. I would, Muldoon said, but they're all in the east garage, more than a mile from here. Where's Harding? I assume he's on his way back. Then he'll pick up the people in the land cruisers on his way. I assume so. Anybody tell Hammond the kids aren't back yet? Hell no, Arnold said. I don't want that son of a bitch running around here screaming at me. Everything's all right for the moment. The land cruisers are just stuck in the rain. They can sit a while until Harding brings them back, or until we find Nedry and make that little bastard turn the systems back on. You can't get them back on, Muldoon said. Arnold shook his head. I've been trying, but Nedry's done something to the system. I can't figure out what, but if I have to go into the code itself, that'll take hours. We need Nedry. We've got to find the son of a bitch right away. Nedry. The sign said, electrified fence, 10,000 volts, do not touch. But Nedry opened it with his bare hand and unlocked the gate, swinging it wide. He went back to the Jeep, drove through the gate, and then walked back to close it behind him. Now he was inside the park itself, no more than a mile from the east dock. He stepped on the accelerator and hunched forward over the steering wheel, peering through the rain-slashed windshield as he drove the Jeep down the narrow road. He was driving fast, too fast, but he had to keep to his timetable. He was surrounded on all sides by black jungle, but soon he should be able to see the beach and the ocean off to his left. This damned storm, he thought. It might screw up everything. Because if Dodson's boat wasn't waiting for him at the east dock when Nedry got there, the whole plan would be ruined. Nedry couldn't wait very long, or he would be missed back at the control room. The whole idea behind the plan was that he could drive to the east dock, drop off the embryos, and be back in a few minutes, before anyone noticed. It was a good plan, a clever plan. Nedry worked on it carefully, refining every detail. Clearly not, Nedry. Did you account for a storm? This plan was going to make him $1.5 million, 1.5 meg. That was 10 years of income in a single tax-free shot, and it was going to change his life. Nedry'd been damned careful, even to the point of making Dodson meet him in the San Francisco airport at the last minute with an excuse about wanting to see the money. Actually, Nedry wanted to record his conversation with Dodson and mention him by name on the tape. Blech. Just so that Dodson wouldn't forget he owed the rest of the money, Nedry was including a copy of the tape with the embryos. In short, Nedry had thought of everything, except this damned storm. Something dashed across the road, a white flash in his headlights. It looked like a large rat. It scurried into the underbrush, dragging a fat tail. Possum. Amazing that a possum could survive here. You'd think the dinosaurs would get an animal like that. Where was the damn dock? He was driving fast, and he'd already been gone for 5 minutes. He should have reached the east dock by now. Had he taken a wrong turn? He didn't think so. He hadn't seen any forks in the road at all. Then where was the dock? It was a shock when he came around a corner and saw that the road terminated in a gray concrete barrier 6 feet tall and streaked dark with rain. He slammed on the brakes and the Jeep fishtailed, losing traction in an end-to-end spin, and for a horrified moment he thought he was going to smash into the barrier. He knew he was going to smash, and he spun the wheel frantically and the Jeep slid to a stop, the headlamps just a foot from the concrete wall. He paused there, listening to the rhythmic flick of the wipers. He felt it. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He looked back down the road. He'd obviously taken a wrong turn somewhere. He could retrace his steps, but that would take too long. He'd better try and find out where the hell he was. He got out of the Jeep, feeling heavy raindrops splatter his head. It was a real tropical storm, raining so hard that it hurt. He glanced at his watch, pushing the button to illuminate the digital dial. 6 minutes gone. Where the hell was he? He walked around the concrete barrier, and on the other side, along with the rain, he heard the sound of gurgling water. Could it be the ocean? Nedry hurried forward, his eyes adjusting to the darkness as he went. Dense jungle on all sides. Raindrops slapping on the leaves. The gurgling sound became louder, drawing him forward, and suddenly he came out of the foliage and felt his feet sink into soft earth and saw the dark currents of the river. The river! He was at the jungle river. Damn, he thought. At the river where? The river ran for miles through the island. He looked at his watch again. 7 minutes gone. You have a problem, Dennis, he said aloud. As if in reply, there was a soft hooting cry of an owl in the forest. Nedry hardly noticed. He was worrying about his plan. The plain fact that time had run out. There wasn't a choice anymore. He had to abandon his original plan. All he could do was go back to the control room, restore the computer, and somehow try to contact Dodson to set up the drop at the East Dock for the following night. Nedry would have to scramble to make that work, but he thought he could pull it off. The computer automatically logged all calls. After Nedry got through to Dodson, he'd have to go back into the computer and erase the record of the call. But one thing was sure. He couldn't stay out in the park any longer, or his absence would be noticed. Nedry started back, heading toward the glow of the car's headlights. He was drenched and miserable. He heard the soft hooting cry once more, and this time he paused. That hadn't really sounded like an owl, and it seemed to be close by, in the jungle somewhere off to his right. As he listened, he heard a crashing sound in the underbrush, then silence. He waited and heard it again. It sounded distinctly like something big moving slowly through the jungle toward him. Something big, something near, a big dinosaur. Get out of here. Nedry began to run. He made a lot of noise as he ran, but even so, he could hear the animal crashing through the foliage and hooting. It was coming closer. Stumbling over tree roots in the darkness, clawing his way past dripping branches, he saw the jeep ahead, and the lights shining around the vertical wall of the barrier made him feel better. In a moment, he'd be in the car, and then he'd get the hell out of here. He scrambled around the barrier, and then he froze. The animal was already there. But it wasn't close. The dinosaur stood 40 feet away, at the edge of the illumination from the headlamps. Nedry hadn't taken the tour, so he hadn't seen the different types of dinosaurs, but this one was strange looking. The 10-foot-tall body was yellow with black spots, and along the head ran a pair of red V-shaped crests. The dinosaur didn't move, but again gave its soft hooting cry. Nedry waited to see if it would attack. It didn't. Perhaps the headlights from the jeep frightened it, forcing it to keep its distance like a fire. The dinosaur stared at him and then snapped its head in a single swift motion. Nedry felt something smack wetly against his chest. He looked down and saw a dripping glob of foam on his rain-soaked shirt. He touched it curiously, not comprehending. It was spit. The dinosaur had spit on him. It was creepy, he thought. He looked back at the dinosaur and saw the head snap again and immediately felt another wet smack against his neck, just above the shirt collar. He wiped it away with his hand. Jesus, it was disgusting. But the skin of his neck was already starting to tingle and burn, and his hand was tingling too. It was almost like he had been touched with acid. Nedry opened the car door, glancing back at the dinosaur to make sure it wasn't going to attack, and felt a sudden, excruciating pain in his eyes, stabbing like spikes into the back of his skull, and he squeezed his eyes shut and gasped with the intensity of it, and threw up his hands to cover his eyes, and felt a slippery foam trickling down both sides of his nose. Spit. The dinosaur had spit in his eyes. Even as he realized it, the pain overwhelmed him, and he dropped to his knees, disoriented, wheezing. He collapsed onto his side, his cheek pressed to the wet ground, his breath coming in thin whistles through the constant, ever-screaming pain that caused flashing spots of light to appear behind his tightly shut eyelids. The earth shook beneath him, and Nedry knew the dinosaur was moving. He could hear its soft hooting cry, and despite the pain, he forced his eyes open, and still he saw nothing but flashing spots against black. Slowly, the realization came to him. He was blind. The hooting was louder as Nedry scrambled to his feet and staggered back against the side panel of the car, as a wave of nausea and dizziness swept over him. The dinosaur was close now. He could feel it coming close. He was dimly aware of its snorting breath, but he couldn't see. He couldn't see anything, and his terror was extreme. He stretched out his hands, waving them wildly in the air to ward off the attack he knew was coming. And then there was a new searing pain, like a fiery knife in his belly, and Nedry stumbled, reaching blindly down to touch the ragged edge of his shirt, and then a thick, slippery mass that was surprisingly warm. And with horror, he suddenly knew he was holding his own intestines in his hands. The dinosaur had torn him open. His guts had fallen out. Nedry fell to the ground and landed on something scaly and cold. It was the animal's foot, and then there was a new pain on both sides of his head. The pain grew worse, and as he was lifted to his feet, he knew the dinosaur had his head in its jaws, and the horror of that realization was followed by a final wish that it would all be ended soon. That one is a bit more graphic of death than the movie. I kind of wish the movie had been able to show something like that. Bungalow. More coffee? Hammond asked politely. No, thank you, Henry Wu said, leaning back in his chair. I couldn't eat anything more. They were sitting in the dining room of Hammond's bungalow, in a secluded corner of the park not far from the labs. Wu had to admit that the bungalow Hammond had built for himself was elegant with sparse, almost Japanese lines, and the dinner had been excellent, considering the dining room wasn't fully staffed yet. But there was something about Hammond that Wu found troubling. The old man was different in some way, subtly different. All during dinner, Wu had tried to decide what it was. In part, a tendency to ramble, to repeat to himself, to retell old stories. In part, it was an emotional lability, flaring anger one moment, maudlin sentimentality the next, but all that could be understood as a natural concomitant of age. I have no idea what that word is. Concomitant. John Hammond was, after all, almost 77. But there was something else, a stubborn evasiveness, an insistence on having his way, and in the end, a complete refusal to deal with the situation that now faced the park. Wu had been stunned by the evidence. He did not yet allow himself to believe the case was proved, that the dinosaurs were breeding. After Grant had asked about amphibian DNA, Wu had intended to go directly to his laboratory and check the computer records of the various DNA assemblies. Because if the dinosaurs were in fact breeding, then everything about Jurassic Park was called into question. Their genetic development methods, their genetic control methods, everything. Even the lysine dependency might be suspect, and if these animals could truly breed and could also survive in the wild. Henry Wu wanted to check the data at once, but Hammond had stubbornly insisted Wu accompany him at dinner. Now then, Henry, you must save room for ice cream, Hammond said, pushing back from the table. Maria makes the most wonderful ginger ice cream. All right. Wu looked at the beautiful, silent serving girl. His eyes followed her out of the room, and then he glanced up at the single video monitor mounted in the wall. The monitor was dark. Your monitor's out, Wu said. Is it? Hammond glanced over. Must be the storm. He reached behind him for the telephone. I'll just check with John in control. I feel like Hammond's being sketchy. Wu could hear the static crackle on the telephone line. Hammond shrugged and set the receiver back in its cradle. Like he's trying to, I don't know, butter Wu up. Make him not, doubt what they're doing there or make it a big deal that the dinosaurs are breeding. That's just where I'm leaning. Lines must be down, he said, or maybe Nedry's still doing data transmission. He has quite a few bugs to fix this weekend. Nedry's a genius in his way, but we had to press him quite hard toward the end to make sure he got things right. Perhaps I should go to the control room and check, Wu said. No, Hammond said. There's no reason. If there were any problem, we'd hear about it. Maria came back into the room with 2 plates of ice cream. Plates of ice cream? Do y'all eat ice cream on a plate? I normally use a bowl. Whatever. You must have just a little, Henry, Hammond said. It's made with fresh ginger from the eastern part of the island. It's an old man's vice, ice cream, but still. Dutifully, Wu dipped his spoon. Outside, lightning flashed and there was the sharp crack of thunder. That was close, Wu said. I hope the storm isn't frightening the children. I shouldn't think so, Hammond said. He tasted the ice cream. But I can't help but hold some fears about this park, Henry. Inwardly, Wu felt relieved. Perhaps the old man was going to face the facts after all. What kind of fears? You know, Jurassic Park's really made for children. The children of the world love dinosaurs, and the children are going to delight in this place. Their little faces will shine with the joy of finally seeing these wonderful animals. But I am afraid. I may not live to see it, Henry. I may not live to see the joy on their faces. I think there are other problems too, Wu said, frowning. But none so pressing on my mind as this, Hammond said, that I may not live to see their shining, delighted faces. This is our triumph, this park. We have done what we set out to do. And you remember, our original intent was to use the newly emerging technology of genetic engineering to make money. A lot of money. Wu knew Hammond was about to launch into one of his old speeches. He held up a hand. I'm familiar with this, John. If you were going to start a bioengineering company, Henry, what would you do? Would you make products to help mankind to fight illness and disease? Dear me, no. That's a terrible idea, a very poor use of new technology. Hammond shook his head sadly. Yet, you'll remember, he said, the original genetic engineering companies like Genentech and Cetus we're all started to make pharmaceuticals, new drugs for mankind. Noble, noble purpose. Unfortunately, drugs face all kinds of barriers. FDA testing alone takes 5 to 8 years, if you're lucky. Even worse, there are forces at work in the marketplace. Suppose you make a miracle drug for cancer or heart disease, as Genentech did. Suppose you now want to charge $1,000 or $2,000 a dose. You might imagine that that is your privilege. After all, you invented the drug. You paid to develop and test it. You should be able to charge whatever you wish. But do you really think that the government will let you do that? No, Henry, they will not. Sick people aren't going to pay $1,000 a dose for needed medication. They won't be grateful. They'll be outraged. Blue Cross isn't going to pay it. They'll scream highway robbery, so something will happen. Your patent application will be denied. Your permits will be delayed. Something will force you to see reason and to sell your drug at a lower cost. From a business standpoint, that makes helping mankind a very risky business. Personally, I would never help mankind. Wu had heard the argument before, and he knew Hammond was right. Some new bioengineered pharmaceuticals had indeed suffered inexplicable delays and patent problems. Now, Hammond said, think how different it is when you're making entertainment. Nobody needs entertainment. That's not a matter for government intervention. If I charge $5,000 a day for my park, who is going to stop me? After all, nobody needs to come here. And, far from being highway robbery, a costly price tag actually increases the appeal of the park. A visit becomes a status symbol, and all Americans love that. So do the Japanese, and of course, they have far more money. Hammond finished his ice cream, and Maria silently took the dish away. She's not from here, you know, he said. She's Haitian. Her mother is French. But in any case, Henry, you will recall that the original purpose behind pointing my company in this direction in the first place was to have freedom from the government intervention anywhere in the world. Speaking of the rest of the world, Hammond smiled. We have already leased a large tract in the Azores, I think, for Jurassic Park Europe. And you know we long ago obtained an island near Guam for Jurassic Park Japan. Construction on the next 2 Jurassic Parks will begin early next year. They will all be open within 4 years. At that time, direct revenues will exceed $10 billion a year, and merchandising, television, and ancillary rights should double that. I see no reason to bother with children's pets, which I'm told Lou Dodson thinks we're planning to make. $20 billion a year, Wu said softly, shaking his head. That's speaking conservatively, Hammond said. He smiled. There's no reason to speculate wildly. More ice cream, Henry? Did you find him? Arnold snapped when the guard walked into the control room. No, Mr. Arnold. Find him. I don't think he's in the building, Mr. Arnold. Then look in the lodge, Arnold said. Look in the maintenance building. Look in the utility shed. Look everywhere, but just find him. The thing is, the guard hesitated. Mr. Nedry's the fat man, is that right? That's right, Arnold said. He's fat. A fat slob. Well, Jimmy down in the main lobby said he saw the fat man go into the garage. Muldoon spun around. Into the garage? When? About 10-15 minutes ago. Jesus, Muldoon said. The Jeep screeched to a stop. Sorry, Harding said. In the headlamps, Ellie saw a herd of... Oh, I forgot to mention this. Sam, who's not in the chat, maybe he'll hear this on a replay, let me know that I need to stop trying to pronounce the dinosaurs' names as if I'm pronouncing Japanese words. So let me go back to this. Ellie saw a herd of apatosaurs lumbering across the road. There were 6 animals, each the size of a house, and a baby as large as a full-grown horse. The apatosaurs moved in unhurried silence, never looking toward the Jeep and its glowing headlamps. At one point, the baby stopped to lap water from a puddle in the road, then moved on. A comparable herd of elephants would have been startled by the arrival of a car, would have trumpeted and circled to protect the baby, but these animals showed no fear. Don't they see us? She said. Not exactly, no. Harding said. Of course, in a literal sense, they do see us, but we don't really mean anything to them. We hardly ever take cars out at night, and so they have no experience of them. We are just a strange, smelly object in their environment, representing no threat and therefore no interest. I've occasionally been out at night visiting a sick animal, and on my way back, these fellows block the road for an hour or more. What do you do? Harding grinned. Play a recorded tyrannosaur roar. That gets them moving. Not that they care much about tyrannosaurs. These apatosaurs are so big, they don't really have any predators. They can break a tyrannosaur's neck with a swipe of their tail, and they know it. So does the tyrannosaur. But they do see us. I mean, if we were to get out of the car, Harding shrugged, they probably wouldn't react. Dinosaurs have excellent visual acuity, but they have a basic amphibian visual system. It's attuned to movement. They don't see unmoving things well at all. The animals moved on, their skin glistening in the rain. Harding put the car in gear. I think we can continue now, he said. Wu said, I suspect you may find there are pressures on your park, just as there are pressures on Genentech's drugs. He and Hammond had moved to the living room, and they were now watching the storm lash the big glass windows. I can't see how, Hammond said. The scientists may wish to constrain you, even to stop you. Well, they can't do that, Hammond said. He shook his finger at Wu. You know why the scientists would try to do that? It's because they want to do research, of course. That's all they ever want to do, is research. Not to accomplish anything, not to make any progress, just do research. Well, they have a surprise coming to them. I wasn't thinking of that, Wu said. Hammond sighed. I'm sure it would be interesting for the scientists to do research, but you arrive at the point where these animals are simply too expensive to be used for research. This is wonderful technology, Henry, but it's also frightfully expensive technology. The fact is, it can only be supported as entertainment, Hammond shrugged. That's just the way it is. But if there are attempts to close us down, face the damn facts, Henry, Hammond said irritably. This isn't America. This isn't even Costa Rica. This is my island. I own it. And nothing is going to stop me from opening Jurassic Park to all the children of the world. He chuckled. Or at least to the rich ones. And I tell you, they'll love it. Wow. Hammond at least was likable in the movie. Whatever. In the back seat of the Jeep, Ellie Sattler stared out the window. They had been driving through rain-drenched jungle for the last 20 minutes and had seen nothing since the apatosaurs crossed the road. We are near the Jungle River now, Harding said as he drove. It's off there somewhere to our left. Abruptly, he slammed on the brakes again. The car skidded to a stop in front of the flock of small green animals. Well, you're getting quite a show tonight, he said. Those are compies. Procompsognathids, Ellie thought, wishing that Grant were here to see them. This was the animal they had seen in the facts, back in Montana. The little dark green Procompsognathids, whatever, scurried to the other side of the road, then squatted on their hind legs to look at the car, chittering briefly before hurrying onward into the night. Odd, Harding said. Wonder where they're off to. Compies don't usually move at night, you know. They climb up in a tree and wait for daylight. Then why are they out now? Ellie said. I can't imagine. You know, compies are scavengers, like buzzards. They're attracted to a dying animal, and they have tremendously sensitive smell. They can smell a dying animal for miles. Then they're going to a dying animal? Dying, or already dead. Should we follow them? Ellie said. I'd be curious, Harding said. Yes, why not? Let's go see where they're going. He turned to the car and headed back toward the compies. Okay, I'm going to warm my tea up and basically stand up so my foot that is asleep can wake up because I have a cat in my lap. So I will be back momentarily.
It was also a perfect time for me to feed the cats so he doesn't try to put my legs to sleep again. So Ellie gets to see a rather gruesome sight that she didn't get to see in the movie. That's interesting. Because no one ever actually found Nedry, right? In the movie. Yeah, and Static's not even here to enjoy the static that he's causing. Oh, that would have been interesting. Y'all not hearing me the entire time. There's one major difference in how Nedry was driving versus me. I don't get lost. Are you meaning in the movie? Or, oh, in the conversation? Did he say it a lot? I don't read it every year like you do, Kratos, so I don't quite remember currently. I might start reading it every year, though. It was a good book. Yeah, no, the Dilophosaurus. It was the Dilophosaurus in the movie, wasn't it? That's not how that's spelled. Dilophosaurus. Like, basically, he was attacked by a baby one in the movie. And then this one was a full-grown one. That's how I'm seeing it. Oh, I could have just, instead of looking it up, scrolled down and found Kratos's. Yeah, they get all hot and steamy in the Jeep. That's a good way of putting it. I feel like he deserved way worse of a death in the movie, so at least in the book he gets one. Yeah. He's still in that mode, which I guess around this time in the movie he's still pretending like that. So it makes sense. I'm starting to realize that the book it feels like the book is taking longer to get places, which, I mean, that makes sense. Obviously, a book to screen, there's going to be difference in timing of it all, but it's following it pretty decently. Yeah, I was going to mention that when I put that question out there of if you have ice cream on plates, I was going to say, like, by itself. I meant to say that rather than like not on pie or whatever. You don't put your ice cream on a plate and snort it. Like, no, I don't. I'm not sure what this question means, Dom. Books like this? Get away with reading books like this on... Oh, you mean public domain. Yeah, it's seemingly fine. I hadn't thought about that in a while, actually. Yeah, this was kind of a a test of that. Huh. What's up, Cliff? Am I ignoring you? I hope he just makes out with the dino and they never show him again. Yeah. Lock his keys in the car in the movie, you mean? No, because he gets in and does the hot and steamy, as Kratos so aptly described it. I don't need a ground guide. My brother's in a wheelchair. I wouldn't be able to see him. I mean, I guess I would be able to with my car. His truck, less so. Ah, so you were talking in the movie. Okay, that makes sense. No, I wasn't talking about a broken down vehicle dinosaur. If anyone understands what I'm trying to say there. I don't know if it was even a baby or if they're just portraying it as smaller. Yeah, it's never really clear when they in the movie. They don't really have any sort of exposition for it, I guess. Well, hello, what will be? Worst death in the movie? I thought it was pretty bad. I mean, yes. The movie was pretty bad. I mean, you don't really see anything. Maybe I'm just weird and I like gore. But I don't know. Like, it's implied that he's eaten alive, I guess. That's a pretty bad death. It's true. I do agree with that. But again, I would have to think more on that. Not again, as with the other thing I need to think on that I've now forgotten. What was it that I was going to think on? Damn it. Need to take notes. Hammond is a little more of a dick in here. Yeah. Like, in the movie, Hammond is more of he's more naive rather than calculating. He's very calculating in the book. And he comes off as naive in the movie, for me at least. The happy-go-lucky shtick. You don't really get to see the calculating side of him if there is one that would have been implied in the movie. Yeah, this is exactly why it stuck out to me. Like, why are you putting your melty food that will turn into a soup onto a plate? I don't know if I'm going to read The Lost World right after this. I plan on doing a mystery next. After the 5th iteration, I think, or it might actually be the 4th iteration. Yeah. I was looking at it. The 5th, 6th, and 7th iterations are all pretty short in comparison to the 3rd and 4th. So I'll probably be able to get through those in one stream. FYI. So maybe I'll just think about it. We'll see. There's a 3rd book, right? Or is it just that there's 3 movies for like the original? What's the 3rd movie called? Second one's Lost World. Okay, only 2 books. Noted. Yes, Nedry didn't get a happy ending. Sucks for him. Okay, the Lost World is a mystery. The world gets lost and they have to go find it. That you're going to have to do a bit better convincing than that, sir, for me to just arbitrarily. Is that even the right word? What was that word that I was stumbling on earlier that I'd never heard of? Concomitant. BRB. Let me figure out how the hell you say this word. It's a thing that is conjoined or concurrent with another, a person who accompanies another, an attendant or a companion. Okay. Oh, I said it right. Concomitant. I just never heard that term before. Like concurrent, I have. Interesting. Is it just called Jurassic Park 3? There wasn't like a Lost World type of thing. Okay, let's see. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and then Jurassic Park 3. You don't need to continue. No. Jurassic World doesn't exist. Those ones don't. Nope. Or the cash grab, if you will. The Donner cut, where the main character flies backwards around the Earth at the end and prevents the whole thing from happening. I don't think so. I don't know if I've seen the third one at least once, I'm sure. That's the one where they're in like a, what is it called? Aviary? Is that the term? Like a bird? Yeah, an aviary. Or is that the second one that they're in an aviary type? Yeah, Dom, I have the only recollection I have from, I believe the third one is that they're in an aviary. So I don't even know if it's at the other island or anything like that. Okay. Fine. I would say it's 3 claw slashes, not marks. All right. I'm going to continue with the last portion of this part of the chapter. Tim Murphy lay in the Land Cruiser, his cheek pressed against the car door handle. He drifted slowly back to consciousness. He wanted only to sleep. He shifted his position and felt the pain in his cheekbone where it lay against the metal door. His whole body ached, his arms and his legs, and most of all, his head. There was a terrible pounding pain in his head. All the pain made him want to go back to sleep. He pushed himself up on one elbow, opened his eyes, and retched, vomiting all over his shirt. He tasted sour bile and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His head throbbed. He felt dizzy and seasick, as if the world were moving, as if he were rocking back and forth on a boat. Tim groaned and rolled onto his back, turning away from the puddle of vomit. The pain in his head made him breathe in short, shallow gasps. And he still felt sick, as if everything were moving. He opened his eyes and looked around, trying to get his bearings. If anybody's never had one, that would be a concussion and the symptoms thereof. He was inside the Land Cruiser, but the car must have flipped over on its side because he was lying on his back against the passenger door, looking up at the steering wheel and beyond, at the branches of a tree moving in the wind. The rain had nearly stopped, but water drops still fell on him through the broken front windshield. He stared curiously at the fragments of glass. He couldn't remember how the windshield had broken. He couldn't remember anything except that he had been parked on the road and he had been talking to Dr. Grant when the Tyrannosaur came toward them. That was the last thing he remembered. He felt sick again and closed his eyes until the nausea passed. He was aware of a rhythmic creaking sound like the rigging of a boat. Dizzy and sick to his stomach, he really felt as if the whole car were moving beneath him.
But when he opened his eyes again, he saw it was true. The Land Cruiser was moving, lying on its side, swaying back and forth. The whole car was moving. Tentatively, Tim rose to his feet. Standing on the passenger door, he peered over the dashboard, looking out through the shattered windshield. At first, he saw only dense foliage moving in the wind, but here and there he could see gaps, and beyond the foliage, the ground was 20 feet below him. He stared uncomprehendingly. The Land Cruiser was lying on its side in the branches of a large tree, 20 feet above the ground, swaying back and forth in the wind. "Oh shit," he said. What was he going to do? He stood on his tiptoes and peered out, trying to see better, grabbing the steering wheel for support. The wheel spun free in his hand, and with a loud crack, the Land Cruiser shifted position, dropping a few feet in the branches of the tree. He looked down through the shattered glass of the passenger door window at the ground below. "Oh shit, oh shit," he kept repeating. "Oh shit, oh shit." Another loud crack. The Land Cruiser jolted down another foot. He had to get out of here. He looked down at his feet. He was standing on the door handle. He crouched back on his hands and knees to look at the handle. He couldn't see very well in the dark, but he could tell that the door was dented outward, so the handle couldn't turn. He'd never get the door open. He tried to roll the window down, but the window was stuck too. Then he thought of the back door. Maybe he could open that. He leaned over the front seat, and the Land Cruiser lurched with the shift in weight. Carefully, Tim reached back and twisted the handle on the rear door. It was stuck too. How was he going to get out? He heard a snorting sound and looked down. A large shape passed below him. It wasn't the Tyrannosaur. This shape was tubby, and it made a kind of snuffling as it waddled along. The tail flipped back and forth, and Tim could see the long spikes. It was the Stegosaur, apparently recovered from its illness. Tim wondered where the other people were, Gennaro and Sattler and the vet. He had last seen them near the Stegosaur. How long ago was that? He looked at his watch, but the face was cracked. He couldn't see the numbers. He took the watch off and tossed it aside. The Stegosaur snuffled and moved on. Now the only sound was the wind in the trees and the creaking of the Land Cruiser as it shifted back and forth. He had to get out of here. Tim grabbed the handle, tried to force it, but it was stuck solid. It wouldn't move at all. Then he realized what was wrong. The rear door was locked. Tim pulled up the pin and twisted the handle. The rear door swung open, downward, and came to rest against the branch a few feet below. The opening was narrow, but Tim thought he could wriggle through it. Holding his breath, he cracked slowly. I'm going to start that one over again. Holding his breath, he crawled slowly back into the rear seat. The Land Cruiser creaked, but held its position. Gripping the doorposts on both sides, Tim slowly lowered himself down through the narrow, angled opening of the door. Soon he was lying flat on his stomach on the slanted floor. Door. His legs sticking out of the car. He kicked in the air. His feet touched something solid, a branch, and he rested his weight on it. That sentence is missing a period at the end. As soon as he did, the branch bent down and the door swung wider, spilling him out of the Land Cruiser, and he fell, leaves scratching his face, his body bouncing from branch to branch, a jolt, searing pain, bright light in his head. He slammed to a stop. The wind knocked from him. That's a very weird sentence. He slammed to a stop. The wind knocked from him. Tim lay doubled over a large branch, his stomach burning in pain. Tim heard another crack and looked up at the Land Cruiser, a dark shape 5 feet above him. Another crack. The car shifted. Tim forced himself to move, to climb down. He used to like to climb trees. He was a good tree climber. And this was a good tree to climb, the branches spaced close together, almost like a staircase. Crack. The car was definitely moving. Tim scrambled downwards, slipping over the wet branches, feeling sticky sap on his hands, hurrying. He had not descended more than a few feet when the Land Cruiser creaked a final time and then slowly, very slowly, nosed over him. Tim could see the big green grille and the front headlights swinging down at him, and then the Land Cruiser fell free, gaining momentum as it rushed toward him. Slamming against the branch where Tim had just been, and it stopped. His face, just inches from the dented grill, bent inward like an evil mouth, headlamps for eyes. Oil dripped on Tim's face. He was still 12 feet above the ground. He reached down, found another branch, and moved on. Above, he saw the branch bending under the weight of the Land Cruiser, and then it cracked. And the Land Cruiser came rushing down toward him, and he knew he could never escape it. He could never get down fast enough, so Tim just let go. He fell the rest of the way. Tumbling, banging, feeling pain in every part of his body, hearing the Land Cruiser smashing down through the branches after him like a pursuing animal, and then Tim's shoulder hit the soft ground and he rolled as hard as he could and pressed his body against the trunk of the tree as the Land Cruiser tumbled down with a loud metallic crash and a sudden hot burst of electrical sparks that stung his skin and sputtered and sizzled on the wet ground around him. Slowly, Tim got to his feet. In the darkness, he heard the snuffling and saw the stegosaur coming back, apparently attracted by the crash of the Land Cruiser. The dinosaur moved dumbly, the low head thrust forward, and the big cartilaginous plates running in 2 rows along the hump of the back. It behaved like an overgrown tortoise, stupid like that, and slow. Tim picked up a rock and threw it. Get away! The rock thunked dully off the plates. The stegosaur kept coming. Go on, go! He threw another rock and hit the stegosaur in the head. The animal grunted, turned slowly away, and shuffled off in the direction it had come. Tim leaned against the crumpled Land Cruiser and looked around in the darkness. He had to get back to the others, but he didn't want to get lost. He knew he was somewhere in the park. Probably not far from the main road, if he could only get his bearings. He couldn't see much in the dark, but then he remembered the goggles. He climbed through the shattered front windshield into the Land Cruiser and found the night vision goggles and the radio. The radio was broken and silent, so he left it behind, but the goggles still worked. He flicked them on, saw the reassuringly familiar phosphorescent green image. I know it's like a sickness, but that sentence is not a sentence without the missing word and. It's really annoying. Wearing the goggles, he saw the battered fence off to his left and walked toward it. The fence was 12 feet high, but the Tyrannosaur had flattened it easily. Tim hurried across it, moved through an area of dense foliage, and came out onto the main road. Through his goggles, he saw the other Land Cruiser turned on its side. He ran toward it, took a breath, and looked inside. The car was empty. No sign of Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm. Where had they gone? Where had everybody gone? He felt sudden panic, standing alone in the jungle road at night with that empty car, and turned quickly in circles, seeing the bright green world in the goggles swirl. Something pale by the side of the road caught his eye. It was Lex's baseball. He wiped the mud off it. Lex! Tim shouted as loud as he could, not caring if the animals heard him. He listened, but there was only the wind and the plink of raindrops falling from the trees. Lex! He vaguely remembered that she had been in the Land Cruiser when the Tyrannosaur attacked. Had she stayed there? Or had she gotten away? The events of the attack were confused in his mind. He wasn't exactly sure what had happened. Just to think of it made him uneasy. He stood in the road, gasping with panic. Lex! The night seemed to close in around him. Feeling sorry for himself, he sat in a cold, rainy puddle in the road and whimpered for a while. When he finally stopped, he still heard whimpering. It was faint, and it was coming from somewhere farther up the road. How long has it been? Muldoon said, coming back into the control room. He was carrying a black metal case. Half an hour. Harding's Jeep should be back here by now. Arnold stubbed out his cigarette. I'm sure they'll arrive any minute now. Still no sign of Nedry? Muldoon said. No, not yet. Muldoon opened the case, which contained 6 portable radios. I'm going to distribute these to people in the building. He handed one to Arnold. Take the charger too. These are our emergency radios, but nobody had them plugged in naturally. Let it charge about 20 minutes and then try and raise the cars. Henry Wu opened the door marked fertilization and entered the darkened lab. There was nobody here. Apparently all the technicians were still at dinner. Wu went directly to the computer terminal and punched up the DNA logbooks. The logbooks had to be kept on computer. DNA was such a large molecule that each species required 10 gigabytes of optical disk space to store details of all the iterations. He was going to have to check all 15 species. That was a tremendous amount of information to search through. He still wasn't clear about why Grant thought frog DNA was important. Wu himself didn't often distinguish one kind of DNA from another. After all, most DNA in living creatures was exactly the same. DNA was an incredibly ancient substance. Human beings walking around in the streets of the modern world, bouncing their pink new babies, hardly stopped to think that the substance at the center of it all, the substance that began the dance of life, was a chemical almost as old as the Earth itself. The DNA molecule was so old that the DNA molecule was so old that its evolution had essentially finished more than 2 billion years ago. There had been little new since that time. Just a few recent combinations of the old genes and not much of that. When you compared the DNA of man and the DNA of a lowly bacterium, you found that only about 10% of the strands were different. This innate conservatism of DNA emboldened Wu to use whatever DNA he wished. In making his dinosaurs, Wu had manipulated the DNA as a sculptor might clay or marble. He had created freely. He started the computer search program, knowing it would take 2 or 3 minutes to run. He got up and walked around the lab, checking instruments out of long-standing habit. He noticed the recorder outside the freezer door, which tracked the freezer temperature. He saw there was a spike in the graph. That was odd, he thought. It meant somebody had been in the freezer. Recently, too, within the last half hour. But who would go in there at night? The computer beeped, signaling that the first of the data searches was complete. Wu went over to see what it had found, and when he saw the screen, he forgot all about the freezer and the graph spike. Un momento, por favor. This is the graph that he's looking at. Lightsky DNA search algorithm. The result was clear. All breeding dinosaurs incorporated rana, or frog, DNA. Rana? None of the other animals did. Wu still did not understand why this had caused them to breed, but he could no longer deny that Grant was right. The dinosaurs were breeding. He hurried up to the control room. Anyone else feel like it's weird that Wu doesn't realize what the issue is? Sorry, I'm just setting up the next one, possibly. Okay. I agree with Dom. How do you title a chapter, Tim, and then incorporate other people's storylines within it? But it's probably going to happen in this next one, which is entitled Lex. She was curled up inside a big 1-meter drainage pipe that ran under the road. She had her baseball glove in her mouth, and she was rocking back and forth, banging her head repeatedly against the back of the pipe. It was dark in there, but he could see her clearly with his goggles. She seemed unhurt, and he felt a great burst of relief. Lex, it's me, Tim. She didn't answer. She continued to bang her head on the pipe. Come on out. She shook her head no. He could see she was badly frightened. Lex, he said, if you come out, I'll let you wear these night goggles. She just shook her head. Look what I have, he said, holding up his hand. She stared uncomprehendingly. It was probably too dark for her to see. It's your ball, Lex. I found your ball. So what? He tried another approach. It must be uncomfortable in there. Cold, too. Wouldn't you like to come out? She resumed banging her head against the pipe. Why not? There's animals out there. That threw him for a moment. She hadn't said animals for years. Oh, okay, my fault. Let me go back. Why not? There's aminals out there. My brain just fixed the word. That threw him for a moment. She hadn't said aminals for years. The aminals are gone, he said. There's a big one, a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He's gone. Where did he go? I don't know, but he's not around here now, Tim said, hoping it was true. Lex didn't move. He heard her banging again. Tim sat down in the grass outside the pipe where she could see him. The ground was wet where he sat. He hugged his knees and waited. He couldn't think of anything else to do. I'm just going to sit here, he said, and rest. Is Daddy out there? No, he said, feeling strange. He's back at home, Lex. Is Mommy? No, Lex. Are there any grown-ups out there? Lex said. Not yet, but I'm sure they'll come soon. They're probably on their way right now. Then he heard her moving inside the pipe, and she came out, shivering with cold and with dried blood on her forehead, but otherwise all right. She looked around in surprise and said, Where's Dr. Grant? I don't know. Well, he was here before. He was? When? Before, Lex said. I saw him when I was in the pipe. Where'd he go? How am I supposed to know, Lex said, wrinkling her nose. She began to shout, Hello, hello, Dr. Grant, Dr. Grant. Tim was uneasy at the noise she was making. It might bring back the Tyrannosaur, but a moment later he heard an answering shout. It was coming from the right, over toward the Land Cruiser that Tim had left a few minutes before. With his goggles, Tim saw with relief that Dr. Grant was walking toward them. He had a big tear in his shirt at the shoulder, but otherwise he looked okay. Thank God, he said. I've been looking for you. Shivering, Ed Regis got to his feet and wiped the cold mud off his face and hands. He had spent a very bad half hour wedged among big boulders on the slope of a hill below the road. He knew it wasn't much of a hiding place, but he was panicked and he wasn't thinking clearly. He had lain in this muddy, cold place and he had tried to get hold of himself, but he kept seeing that dinosaur in his mind. That dinosaur coming toward him, toward the car. Ed Regis didn't remember exactly what had happened after that. He remembered that Lex had said something, but he hadn't stopped. He couldn't stop. He had just kept running and running. Beyond the road, he had lost his footing and tumbled down the hill and come to rest by some boulders, and it had seemed to him that he could crawl in among the boulders and hide. There was enough room, so that was what he had done. Gasping and terrified, thinking of nothing except to get away from the Tyrannosaur. And finally, when he was wedged in there like a rat between the boulders, he had calmed down a little, and he had been overcome with horror and shame because he'd abandoned those kids. He had just run away. He had just saved himself. He knew he should go back up to the road. He should try to rescue them because he had always imagined himself as brave and cool under pressure. But whenever he tried to get control of himself, to make himself go up there, somehow he just couldn't. He started to feel panicky, and he had trouble breathing, and he didn't move. He told himself it was hopeless anyway. If the kids were still up there on the road, they could never survive. And certainly, there was nothing Ed Regis could do for them. And he might as well stay where he was. No one was going to know what had happened except him, and there was nothing he could do, nothing he could have done. And so Regis had remained among the boulders for half an hour, fighting off panic, carefully not thinking about whether the kids had died or about what Hammond would have to say when he found out. What finally made him move was the peculiar sensation he noticed in his mouth. The side of his mouth felt funny, kind of numb and tingling, and he wondered if he had hurt it during the fall. Regis touched his face and felt swollen flesh on the side of his mouth. It was funny, but it didn't hurt at all. Then he realized the swollen flesh was a leech growing fat as it sucked his lips. It was practically in his mouth. Shivering with nausea, Regis pulled the leech away, feeling it tear from the flesh of his lips, feeling the gush of warm blood in his mouth. He spat and flung it with disgust into the forest. He saw another leech on his forearm and pulled it off, leaving a dark, bloody streak behind. Oh, I hate this. I hate this. I don't like it. Oh, God. Jesus, he was probably covered with them. That fall down the hillside. These jungle hills were full of leeches. So were the dark, rocky crevices. What did the workmen say? The leeches crawled up your underwear. They liked dark, warm places. They liked to crawl right up your... Hello? He stopped. It was a voice carried by the wind. Hello? Dr. Grant? Jesus, that was the little girl. Oh, I hate this right now. Ugh. Ed Regis listened to the tone of her voice. She didn't sound frightened or in pain. She was just calling in her insistent way, and it slowly dawned on him that something else must have happened, that the Tyrannosaur must have gone away, or at least hadn't attacked, and that the other people might still be alive, Grant and Malcolm. Everybody might be alive, and the realization made him pull himself together in an instant, the way you got sober in an instant when the cops pulled you over. And he felt better because now he knew what he had to do. And as he crawled out from the boulders, he was already formulating the next step, already figuring out what he would say, how to handle things from this point. Regis wiped the cold mud off his face and hands, the evidence that he had been hiding. He wasn't embarrassed that he had been hiding, but now he had to take charge. He scrambled back up toward the road, but when he emerged from the foliage, he had a moment of disorientation. He didn't see the cars at all. He was somehow at the bottom of the hill. The Land Cruisers must be at the top. He started walking up the hill, back toward the Land Cruisers. It was very quiet. His feet splashed in the muddy puddles. He couldn't hear the little girl anymore. Why had she stopped calling? As he walked, he began to think that maybe something had happened to her. In that case, he shouldn't walk back there. But the Tyrannosaur was still hanging around. Here he was, already at the bottom of the hill, that much closer to home, and it was so quiet. Spooky. It was so quiet. Ed Regis turned around and started walking back toward the camp. Alan Grant ran his hands over her limbs, squeezing the arms and legs briefly. She didn't seem to have any pain. It was amazing. Aside from a cut on her head, she was fine. I told you I was, she said. Well, I had to check. The boy was not quite so fortunate. Tim's nose was swollen and painful. Grant suspected it was broken. His right shoulder was badly bruised and swollen, but his legs seemed to be all right. Both kids could walk. That was the important thing. Grant himself was all right except for a claw abrasion down his right chest where the Tyrannosaur had kicked him. It burned with every breath, but it didn't seem to be serious, and it didn't limit his movement. He wondered if he had been kicked unconscious, because he had only dim recollections of events immediately preceding the moment he had sat up groaning in the woods 10 yards from the Land Cruiser. At first, his chest had been bleeding, so he had stuck leaves on the wound, and after a while, it clotted. Then he had started walking around, looking for Malcolm and the kids. Grant couldn't believe he was still alive, and as scattered images began to come back to him, he tried to make sense of them. The Tyrannosaur should have killed them all easily. Why hadn't it? I'm hungry, Lex said. Me too, Grant said. We've got to get ourselves back to civilization, and we've got to tell them about the ship. We're the only ones who know, Tim said. Yes, we've got to get back and tell them. Then let's walk down the road toward the hotel, Tim said, pointing down the hill. That way we'll meet them when they come for us. Grant considered that, and he kept thinking about one thing, the dark shape that had crossed between the Land Cruisers even before the attack started. What animal had that been? He could think of only one possibility, the little Tyrannosaur. I don't think so, Tim. The road has high fences on both sides, Grant said. If one of the Tyrannosaurs is farther down on the road, we'll be trapped. Then should we wait here? Tim said. Yes, Grant said. Let's just wait here until someone comes. I'm hungry, Lex said. I hope it won't be very long, Grant said. I don't want to stay here, Lex said. Then, from the bottom of the hill, they heard the sound of a man coughing. Stay here, Grant said. He ran forward to look down the hill. Stay here, Tim said, and he ran after him. Lex followed her brother. Don't leave me. Don't leave me here, you guys. Grant clapped his hands over her mouth. She struggled to protest. He shook his head and pointed over the hill for her to look. At the bottom of the hill, Grant saw Ed Regis standing rigid, unmoving. The forest around them had become deadly silent. The steady background drone of cicadas and frogs had ceased abruptly. There was only the faint rustle of leaves and the whine of the wind. Lex started to speak, but Grant pulled her against the trunk of the nearest tree, ducking down among the heavy gnarled roots at the base. Tim came in right after them. Grant put his hands to his lips, signaling them to be quiet, and then he slowly looked around the tree. The road below was dark, and as the branches of the big trees moved in the wind, the moonlight filtering through made a dappled, shifting pattern. Ed Regis was gone. It took Grant a moment to locate him. The publicist was pressed up against the trunk of a big tree, hugging it. Regis wasn't moving at all. The forest remained silent. Lex tugged impatiently at Grant's shirt. She wanted to know what was happening. Then, from somewhere very near, they heard a soft, snorting exhalation, hardly louder than the wind. Lex heard it too because she stopped struggling. The sound floated toward them again, soft as a sigh. Grant thought it was almost like the breathing of a horse. Grant looked at Regis and saw the moving shadows cast by the moonlight on the trunk of the tree, and then Grant realized there was another shadow, superimposed on the others, but not moving, a strong, curved neck and a square head. The exhalation came again. Tim leaned forward cautiously to look. Lex did too. They heard a crack as a branch broke, and into the path stepped a tyrannosaur. It was the juvenile, about 8 feet tall, and it moved with the clumsy gait of a young animal, almost like a puppy. The juvenile tyrannosaur shuffled down the path, stopping with every step to sniff the air before moving on. It passed the tree where Regis was hiding and gave no indication that it had seen him. Grant saw Regis's body relax slightly. Regis turned his head, trying to watch the tyrannosaur on the far side of the tree. The tyrannosaur was now out of view down the road. Regis started to relax, releasing his grip on the tree, but the jungle remained silent. Regis remained close to the tree trunk for another half a minute. Then the sounds of the forest returned. The first tentative croak of a tree frog, the buzz of one cicada, and then the full chorus. Regis stepped away from the tree, shaking his shoulders, releasing the tension. He walked into the middle of the road, looking in the direction of the departed tyrannosaur. The attack came from the left. The juvenile roared as it swung its head forward, knocking Regis flat to the ground. He yelled and scrambled to his feet, but the tyrannosaur pounced, and it must have pinned him with its hind leg because suddenly Regis wasn't moving. He was sitting up in the path, shouting at the dinosaur and waving his hands at it as if he could scare it off. The young dinosaur seemed perplexed by the sounds and movement coming from its tiny prey. The juvenile bent its head over, sniffing curiously, and Regis pounded on the snout with his fists. "Get away! Back off! Go on! Back off!" Regis was shouting at the top of his lungs, and the dinosaur backed away, allowing Regis to get to his feet. Regis was shouting, "Yeah, you heard me! Back off! Get away!" as he moved away from the dinosaur. The juvenile continued to stare curiously at the odd, noisy little animal before it. But when Regis had gone a few paces, it lunged and knocked him down again. "It's playing with him," Grant thought. "Hey!" Regis shouted as he fell, but the juvenile did not pursue him, allowing him to get to his feet. He jumped to his feet and continued backing away. "You stupid, back, back! You heard me, back!" He shouted like a lion tamer. The juvenile roared, but it did not attack, and Regis now edged toward the trees and high foliage to the right. In another few steps, he would be in hiding. "Back! You! Back!" Regis shouted, and then, at the last moment, the juvenile pounced and knocked Regis flat on his back. "Cut that out!" Regis yelled, and the juvenile ducked his head, and Regis began to scream. No words, just a high-pitched scream. The scream cut off abruptly, and when the juvenile lifted his head, Grant saw ragged flesh in his jaws. "Oh no," Lex said softly. Beside her, Tim had turned away, suddenly nauseated. His night vision goggles slipped from his forehead and landed on the ground with a metallic clink. The juvenile's head snapped up, and it looked toward the top of the hill. Tim picked up his goggles as Grant grabbed both the children's hands and began to run. Isn't it fun when I leave you guys on cliffhangers? I don't remember much of the Dino movies. Never really saw them more. Cliff, please tell me you're joking. Yeah, a claw mark is a slash, the mark that a claw leaves behind. Thanks for the explanation. It's still a slash mark. Or slashes. Three slashes. I'm right, you're right, shut up. I was wondering that too. Stego's not gonna eat you. And then this was a funny comment. I feel like in Lex's chapter, there was more of Ed Regis than Lex. So Michael Crichton wasn't the best, most clever person at entitling chapters, it would seem. Oh, hey, Mudcrab. What's up? My body clock is so messed up at the moment. It's okay. I forgive you. Thanks for being here either way. Never saw Stand By Me. Or maybe I did when I was a kid. I don't remember it, like, at all, if I did see it. Who's a fan of leeches? That, like, was that entire scene not gross to y'all? Because it was gross. I hate leeches. I hate them. Yeah, I guess that's what you can call it if you like using modern terms for things. Leeches are awful. Have you guys ever dealt with leeches? Ugh. Blah, blah, blah. Ugh. Gross. Plot twist that T-Rex can imitate human voices. Well, hello, Mudcat. I mean, may contain traces of seafood. What's up? Actually, I was gonna comment on this. I really like Timmy better in the book, and I am beginning to really dislike the poor portrayal of him in the movies. Like, it's a bit annoying to me at this point because he's very self-sufficient, and some of those personality traits were given to Lex, but maybe it's because she's a girl, so it doesn't suit her well enough to make up for the rest of the flaws that she has. I don't know. I am way more partial to book Timmy than movie Timmy. When I was that age, I had to play on equipment surrounded by bitumen. I never know how to say that word. So if you fell off, you fucking died. I'm skipping the rest of your comments, Mudcrab, because they are leech related and gross. I think you read before and plan to leave us. Read before and plan to leave? No, I don't actually. I just know that there's approximately 100 pages per iteration of the longer iterations, and this is right smack dab in the middle of the iteration. So it just so happens to have been like that, okay? And I mean, the last cliffhanger was at the end of an iteration. I'm not going to start into the next one. Yeah, they should have been called something different. That's a good point. Star Wars before it became, or Disney Star Wars before it existed. Dom, I will ban you. Would you like that? Here, let me just go ahead. Find you here. Put user in timeout. Hide user on this channel. Choices. Choices. Which should I make?
plague doctors are... you guys. No. Would you rather have a spider crawl... I'd rather have the spider. Leeches are gross. They're gross. They're awful. Just like, you just have like a pustule thing that's just sucking your blood and like squelchy and gross. Ugh. You don't talk shit on Henry Cavill. I will boot you. Yes, yes. And I appreciate the fact of the goggles being of the goggles continuing to be used, because it did seem like a bit of a waste. I guess they treated them more like a toy in the movie rather than actual NVGs, like the book is treating them. So the book is utilizing them better, significantly. You're not going to be able to make me watch that. Isn't that about a kid that has AIDS or some shit and like dies? It's like a group of friends on train tracks or something. It's like a very depressing movie. Or is that a different movie? Yes, he does seem more of a big deal. Or like he can at least handle himself like a pseudo adult while still being a kid. Cavill would make it. You guys are just. Aw, I forgot you're a Nintendo adult. Have fun. No. I think the world needs a Cavill and Hemsworth movie. Call it Chris and Henry punch shit and have the entire plot being them while punching shit. I'd be fine with this. Shirtless. They should do a boxing movie. I'm there. How do you feel about vampires sucking your blood? What? First of all, vampires aren't real. And I haven't really thought about them sucking my blood. That's not even a good comparison to leeches. Okay, then what movie am I thinking of? And along the way, they traverse a swamp and get leeches all over them, including one on Will Wheaton's. Ew. I don't want to think about Will Wheaton's anything in that area. Well, anything. No, that's not the movie I was thinking of. But yes, there is a kid that dies in that mud crab. But that is an allergy to bees. I'm not answering this. And they don't really crawl, dumb. They just sit there sucking your blood. What if the vampire shrunk himself down to the size of a rat? I don't understand this questioning. Like, you're wanting me to compare a real life creature to a fantasy creature. So I don't get where this is supposed to be going. Does anyone really like creatures stealing their life fluids? I don't like mosquitoes either. They're not as like gross to me because they're not like slimy, featureless things. Like leeches are just slugs that like latch onto you and suck your blood, and that is just, it's unappealing. This is such a weird fucking conversation. Dom, I would like you to look up Agent Coulson. from Marvel. You'll understand why once you get there. Oh, River Phoenix. He died, right? Is River Joaquin's brother? Is it is Leo DiCaprio in that movie too? Or is he in the one where the kid has AIDS? It's like a group of 4 friends or something. Yes, that is the reason, Dom. Will Wheaton pretty much does everything badly, so I'm not surprised at that. I'm not even answering that. Yay! He just came out from under my bed because the storm has stopped. No, it wasn't the Gilbert Grape movie. You're always so full of random facts, Mudcrab. I mean, this one makes sense. Melbourne. I mean, I'm not saying you're from Melbourne. I don't know exactly where you are down under, but all right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. I appreciate you all. I am a little surprised that I made it this long into the stream. So I'm glad we were able to get through the normal reading time. Yeah, so make sure you show up next week to delve deeper into this and finish the 4th iteration. This has been a lot of fun. Start thinking about mystery books that you want to provide as suggestions. Because I am going to read mystery next. I will think about reading The Lost World because it's not that long of a book, both of them. I might do it. Do you read that every year too, Kratos? You read them both? But anyway, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Even drop comments on the replay if you would like as well. Sweet. And not a single time did I mention pinned to the top of the chat is my stream elements because I forgot because I'm super good at that. Just realized it now. Anything else? See, this is a good way to try and convince. I figured that would be an argument from you eventually, so it makes sense. Yes, I have heard of that, Mudcrab. Thank you. You're a pain in the ass, Kel. Anyway, everybody have a good night. Thank you for hanging out, and I will talk to you guys next week. Otherwise, you'll see me likely tomorrow on, I almost said Screaming into the Void. What is tomorrow? Weekend pregame, and then Ballbusters, and then Screaming into the Void on Saturday. So, bye. I don't care if it's public domain anymore, Mudcrab. This current book we're reading is not public domain. So I haven't been taken down yet. I used it as like a litmus test, I guess. So yeah, anyway, bye. Have a good night, everybody. I got to go.